Wonderful to see you, my dear friend, and you're joining me all the way from Spain. Woohoo!
Yeah. Yeah.
How's the weather, by the way? I know everyone asks, but is it warm
Right,
or is it
but
cold?
it's chilly. Yes, we've been able to swim until very recently, but now it's gone down to 15 degrees in the
Ooh,
winter, so it's a bit chilly.
yeah, I can imagine. 15's not too bad, though. Not
Not
too bad.
not
Could
too
be
bad.
worse.
It could be.
And you're there for a while, aren't you?
I'm here till next Saturday. I usually come for either 2, 3, or 4 weeks, several times a year, because my wife is Spanish and we this is our second home.
Well, it's obviously paying off because you're looking dashing and radiant as always. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mine is all lighting. So when you turn this off, you don't want to know. But yours is natural, so it's okay. I must take this opportunity to thank you very much for the wonderful 100th episode message that you've sent to me. And that's going to be shared on the socials very, very soon. So thank you. But something very interesting you've said in that message. I don't want to give any spoilers, but you have mentioned that the show, the 100th episode, which is coming out on the 21st of November, is the cusp of Scorpio moving into Sagittarius, which reminded me of our conversation recently. You were on the Homeopathy Health Show for a two-part special. And you mentioned we were talking about my birth month, and that's March. And you mentioned that with alongside Aquarius, am I right? For April. And that was also on the cusp. Or was it Aries?
Okay. It's not a question. It's March, April is Pisces on the cusp of Aries.
Aries. That's what I meant. Sorry to the
Oh, that's
listeners.
fine.
I
It
I,
is very
I
interesting.
yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, it's interesting because the cusp reminded me just of that conversation itself. So interesting times.
Yeah. I think it's very, we are, of course, on the cusp of an age,
Hmm.
which is, I think that's being borne out very strongly that we're on the cusp, not of Pisces going into Aries, which would be how people live their lives on this earth now, but in the terms of ages, we seem to go backwards. So we're going from Pisces into Aquarius, and the two are so different, despite being next door neighbors.
Hmm.
Go from Pisces, which is where everyone is in compliance, everybody wants to follow the swim, to the age of Aquarius, which is no, I'm going to do things on my terms.
Interesting.
Very tribal. It's very community spirited. It's very much to do with maverick things, extraordinary things. But it's also Uranus is ruled by the Aquarius is ruled by the planet Uranus, which of course is also the planet that rules artificial intelligence.
Ah,
Yes.
fascinating.
And it's very interesting to see the history of this because in the 1780s, 1790s, when the very first earliest seeds of the Aquarian age were planted, and that's the Industrial Revolution. It's a
Fascinating.
long and gradual process taking actually several hundred years to move from one age into another. But we are certainly getting into Aquarius now.
How do you see that changing as far as we are concerned as human beings?
As homeopaths, to me, and I am biased. I admit I am very biased. For me, homeopathy is an Aquarian art. It's a science, but it's an art, and it's Aquarian because it is something. It is a creative activity which is at the disposal of humanity. That sounds very grandiloquent, but if you just bring it down to your own local practice, it's about helping your community.
Hmm.
And so any practice that is helping your community is very Aquarian. And it means that as homeopaths, this is a slightly odd thing, but as homeopaths, we need to be rather like the shaman who lives in a wigwam, if you like, to borrow a cultural term, a wigwam at the end of the village. He's slightly apart, but
Hmm.
still very much with the people. Slightly apart because he has to maintain a modicum of distance to be able to see and hear, but he needs to be very much part of the community. so that he is easily available when he's needed. An Aquarian is someone who doesn't want to interpose himself. He is there when asked. And when he's asked, he'll give his help until, I've done what I can. And then he goes back on his own. More specifically, I am doing, or I have been doing for the last year, a webinar under the auspices of the Center for Homeopathic Education, which is called the Anatomy of Energy. I must get this right. The Anatomy of Energy, which is basically about the way that homeopathy, small h, connects with the Eastern philosophies, Chinese traditional medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, all those medicines that have information about chakras, energy centers. Also about astrology, which is another resource that we need to make much more use of. I know astrology can be easily rubbished, but actually, when you start looking at astrology as a means of understanding a person's past, not for prediction, that doesn't really interest me. What really interests me is, what does a chart say about a person and how they've arrived at now when they're in front of me as a patient? What can be revealed is prodigious, extraordinary, and I find it utterly fascinating. I'm addicted, I'm afraid.
I started off saying this year that 2024 is the year of homeopathy, but I've changed that now because I think that every year now is the year of homeopathy going forward.
I think you're right. I'm hoping you're right. I don't see why it shouldn't be. But I think more and more people have got to become aware that they have the potential to become practitioners. Yes, the study of homeopathy is daunting. But if you're lucky enough to be like me, just dropping into the pool of homeopathy without really thinking, just being interested and then fascinated and then totally addicted, then you don't think about how daunting it is. And I think everybody who has an interest in it, even if they don't become practitioners, but use it at home and with their family, what I call kitchen physic, go for it. You can't harm people with homeopathy. You can harm with neglect, definitely.
Yes.
But you can't harm people by using medicines. They are very simple, and if they are not appropriate, they do nothing. And wow, why shouldn't we be using that? It's great.
It's amazing. It really is. And I can see a very, very bright future, as far as homeopathy is concerned. It's happening and it's going to continue to happen. And I think it's going to become huge. I mean, bigger than it is now. I feel it's going to become massive, actually, for want of a better word, Yes.
Stitch by stitch. Yeah.
Why do you say that out of interest?
I've in the 36 or something years that I've been doing this, I've seen lots and lots of people falling over themselves to make homeopathy really big, and they've wanted it to do things like taking it into the NHS. It's like, yes, that's a wonderful idea, but we have to do this very quietly, very slowly, brick by brick, building this wall, because it does take time for people to accustom themselves to something that's so peculiar. It is peculiar to treat someone with energy and not with chemistry. We have to change the whole view of the balance of physics and chemistry. We use chemistry, we've been using chemistry for the last 250 years as being the major means of treatment. And we can see where it's led us. It's sort of made many people live longer, I know, but actually it's still suppressive. We have to discover how to use physics in order to heal ourselves, because physics always comes before chemistry. There is no chemistry without physics. To put two chemicals together, you need someone's idea to put them together. That's physics. So to heal ourselves, we need the physics of intuition and the physics of understanding the past.
It's you're absolutely right. It's going to take time, and once it's cemented, once the cement is starting to harden, but that's not going to be like lay the floor today and hopefully tomorrow it'll be done.
No.
Yeah, slowly, and generations as well. We have to think about it that way. Sometimes it can take just, I mean, a very tiny, tiny example. It can take one family practicing and using homeopathy at home on their children. It's only when the next generation grow up and they continue that trend and then their children they use upon. That's a generation, right? So that's not 20 years. It's much, much, much longer.
Yeah, I mean that's borne out by my own family. I mean, I'm the first one in my family to be a homeopath, but I've got two children. Two of my four children are homeopaths. One's also
Wow.
an osteopath, and now his children, my osteopath son, his children are, so to speak, clean. They've not been vaccinated. They have only homeopathy treatment. I'm hoping that they will grow up to be the same, and their children. So if we hear this more and more, it's going to be the medical vernacular. That's
Brilliant.
got to be good.
Colin, you are an absolute genius as far as I'm concerned, and many, many, many people are concerned, and they'll agree. Thank you so much for just popping on, really, and just to have this chat. It wasn't, there was no script; it just flowed, and I wish you the best for the end of this year. Season's greetings to you. If you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas to you, and a blessed New Year. And stay safe. And we will be in touch in the new year, of course.